Step back from the vehicle. Hands where I can see them. Now.
Officer, I'm just coming from the pharmacy. I have my ID right here.
I said hands up! Don't reach! Are you a United States citizen?
Yes, sir. I'm a decorated Marine. Served in Desert Storm. What's going on?
Easy, that's what we're here to find out.
Marcus Henderson thought Tuesday afternoon would be ordinary. The 54-year-old former Marine had just finished physical therapy at the VA hospital in San Antonio, Texas. His weekly routine for managing injuries from his military service. As he walked his car in the parking garage, he had no idea that within minutes, his life would become a national news story. 2 immigration and customs enforcement agents were waiting by his vehicle. They received what they described as a credible tip about someone using fraudulent veteran credentials to access federal benefits. When Marcus reached for his wallet to show his military ID, the situation exploded into a confrontation that was recorded by hospital security cameras and multiple witnesses. What those cameras captured was shocking. A decorated combat veteran being detained, searched, and humiliated based on an anonymous complaint that would later be exposed as a complete fabrication. The real story behind that tip, and who made it, would reveal something even darker about how personal vendettas can weaponize federal authority. This is a story of how one veteran's 15-minute nightmare in a parking garage led to a $12.4 million federal judgment and exposed a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of local law enforcement. Before we dive deeper into this absolutely shocking story, I need you to do something. Drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from, your country, your state, wherever you are. And if you believe in holding authority figures accountable when they abuse their power, hit that subscribe button. Marcus Henderson grew up in Houston's Fifth Ward, a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce but community bonds ran deep. Born in 1969 to a single mother who worked double shifts as a nurse, Marcus learned early that success required discipline and determination. His mother, Patricia, had escaped an abusive relationship and dedicated her life to ensuring her son would have chances she never did. In high school, Marcus excelled in athletics and academics, but college scholarships proved elusive. When he turned 18 in 1987, he made a decision that would shape his entire life. He walked into the Marine Corps recruiting office on Richmond Avenue and enlisted. His mother cried, but she understood. The military offered structure, purpose, and a way forward. Boot camp at Paris Island broke him down and rebuilt him into something stronger. Marcus discovered he thrived under the Marines' demanding standards. He qualified as an expert marksman, earned his infantry certification, and volunteered for every challenging assignment available. By the time he deployed to the Persian Gulf in 1990, he was a lance corporal with a reputation for excellence. Desert Storm tested Marcus in ways training never could. During the ground campaign into Kuwait, his unit encountered heavy resistance at a fortified position. When his squad leader was hit by enemy fire, Marcus assumed command, coordinating the defensive position until reinforcements arrived. His actions that day earned him the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with Combat V for Valor. Marcus returned to Houston in 1991, carrying injuries both visible and hidden. Shrapnel had torn through his right shoulder during that firefight, requiring multiple surgeries and leaving him with limited mobility. The physical pain was manageable compared to the nightmares, images of burning vehicles, the sounds of incoming fire, the weight of making life or death decisions at 21 years old. The VA helped with his physical rehabilitation, but mental health support was limited in that era. Marcus pushed through, using his GI Bill to study criminal justice at Houston Community College. He'd seen how leadership mattered in combat, and he wanted to bring that same sense of service to civilian life. In 1995, Marcus joined the San Antonio Police Department, moving to the city for a fresh start. His military experience translated well to law enforcement. He was calm under pressure, excellent at de-escalating conflicts, and built strong relationships in the communities he served. Over 15 years, he earned multiple commendations for his work, particularly in community policing initiatives, but his shoulder injury worsened with age. By 2010, the constant pain made the physical demands of patrol work impossible. Marcus reluctantly took medical retirement at 41, leaving a career he loved. He found work as a security consultant, training businesses on emergency protocols. It wasn't the same, but it allowed him to use his experience while managing his physical limitations. By 2023, Marcus had settled into a comfortable routine, divorced but on good terms with his ex-wife. He had 2 adult children he was immensely proud of. His daughter worked as a pediatric nurse, carrying on her grandmother's legacy. His son was finishing law school. Marcus spent his days consulting, attending physical therapy twice weekly, and volunteering with veteran support organizations. His shoulder required ongoing treatment, physical therapy every Tuesday and Thursday to maintain what mobility remained. The sessions at the South Texas Veterans Healthcare System had become part of his identity, a reminder that he was still fighting, still pushing through pain just like he'd learned in the Marines. Tuesday, March 12, 2023, started unremarkably. Marcus arrived at the VA hospital at 1 p.m. for his scheduled appointment. The physical therapy session was intense, working on range of motion exercises that left his shoulder aching. By 2:45 p.m., he was walking to the parking garage toward his silver Honda Accord, thinking about stopping for groceries on the way home. The parking garage was dimly lit, with security cameras positioned at regular intervals. Marcus had parked on the 3rd level, in a spot near the elevator that made the walk easier on his shoulder. As he approached his vehicle, he noticed 2 people standing near it, a man and a woman in plain clothes, both watching him intently. Marcus Henderson? The man stepped forward, holding up a badge and credentials. I'm Special Agent David Reeves with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is Agent Monica Torres. We need to speak with you. Marcus stopped several feet from his car, his instincts immediately on alert. In his years in law enforcement, he'd learned to read situations, and something about this felt wrong. Okay, he said calmly. What's this about? We receive information that you may be fraudulently accessing VA benefits, Reeves said, his tone aggressive from the start. We need to verify your citizenship status and your eligibility for federal services. Marcus felt a surge of confusion mixed with anger, but he kept his expression neutral. I'm a United States citizen and a combat veteran. I have all my documentation. What specific information did you receive? Torres stepped closer, her hand resting on her belt near her service weapon. Sir, we'll ask the questions. Step away from the vehicle and keep your hands visible. The parking garage security camera captured everything. Marcus standing calmly with his hands at his sides. The 2 agents positioned themselves defensively as if he posed a threat. Anyone watching the footage could see the disconnect between Marcus's non-threatening demeanor and the agent's aggressive posture. I'm happy to cooperate, Marcus said, his voice steady despite his rising alarm. My wallet is in my back pocket. May I reach for it to show you my identification? Reeves's response was immediate and hostile. Don't reach for anything. Keep your hands where we can see them. Are you a United States citizen? Yes, I was born in Houston, Texas. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I served in Desert Storm. Marcus kept his hands visible, falling back on his police training for de-escalating confrontations. I need to understand what this is about. What information did you receive? We received a complaint that someone matching your description has been using false military credentials to fraudulently access VA benefits, Torres said. We need to verify your identity and citizenship immediately. Marcus's mind raced. Someone matching his description? False military credentials? Nothing about this made sense. I've been receiving VA care for my service-connected injuries for over a decade. Everything is documented. You can verify my service record in minutes. What specifically am I accused of? Instead of answering, Reeves moved toward Marcus's vehicle. We're going to search for this car. If you have nothing to hide, you won't object. I absolutely object, Marcus said firmly, his law enforcement background kicking in. You don't have probable cause to search my vehicle. You haven't shown me a warrant. I haven't consented to any search. This is a violation of my Fourth Amendment rights. The security camera captured Reeves' face darkening with anger. You're refusing to cooperate with a federal investigation. That makes you look guilty of something, Mr. Henderson. Torres pulled out a document from her folder. The complaint we received stated that a black male in his 50s, driving a silver Honda, has been observed at this facility multiple times using what appeared to be fraudulent military identification. The complainant works in federal law enforcement and has reason to believe the documents are fake. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Someone in law enforcement had reported him? For what? Being a black veteran accessing his earned benefits. Who made this complaint? I want to see it. That information is confidential during an active investigation, Reeves said, but something in his expression suggested he wasn't entirely comfortable with the situation either. Just show us your documentation, and we can clear this up. I will show you my identification, Marcus said carefully, but I want to be clear that I'm cooperating under protest. This stop has no legal basis, and you're violating my constitutional rights. He slowly reached for his wallet, moving deliberately to avoid any misunderstanding. From it, he extracted his driver's license, his VA medical card, his retired police identification from San Antonio PD, and his Marine Corps veteran ID card. He held them out to Torres. She examined each document carefully, then passed them to Reeves. Both agents studied the identification in silence. The documents were obviously legitimate, professional quality, with security features issued by federal and state agencies. These could be sophisticated forgeries, Reeves said, though his tone had lost some of its earlier confidence. Forgeries. Marcus's voice rose slightly. You think I forged a police department ID? A VA medical card? Call the San Antonio Police Department. Call the VA. I'm in their systems. This is absurd. A hospital employee walked past, noticed the confrontation, and slowed down. She recognized Marcus from his regular therapy sessions and saw the tension in the scene. Pulling out her phone, she began recording from about 20 feet away. Torres noticed her immediately. Ma'am, move along. This is federal business. I'm in a public parking garage. The woman called back. I have every right to be here. And I'm recording because this looks like harassment. Reeves turned to her, his voice sharp. If you interfere with federal investigation, you'll be arrested for obstruction. I'm not interfering, she replied calmly. I'm documenting. There's a difference. Marcus recognized her. Patricia Chun, a physical therapist he'd spoken with several times. Her presence and her recording gave him a small measure of hope that whatever happened next would be witnessed. Reeves turned back to Marcus. We're taking you in for processing and verification. You'll come with us to our field office. On what grounds? Marcus demanded. You've seen my identification. You have no probable cause for detention. You're violating federal law right now. You're being detained for investigation, Torres said, pulling handcuffs from her belt. Turn around and place your hands behind your back. Marcus's training told him he had rights, but also told him that resisting would only make things worse. He turned slowly, allowing Torres to cuff his wrists. The metal closed around him with painful pressure, and he felt a surge of humiliation wash over him. This is wrong, he said quietly. You know this is wrong. The security camera captured everything. A veteran being handcuffed in a VA hospital parking garage, while a witness recorded on her phone. Torres and Reeves led Marcus to their unmarked vehicle, placing him in the back seat. Patricia Chin called out, I'm a witness to this. I know this man. He's a veteran and a retired police officer. Whatever you think he's done, you're wrong. Neither agent responded. They got into the front seats, and Reeves started the engine. As they pulled out of the parking garage, Marcus watched the VA hospital disappear from view, replaced by the streets of San Antonio he'd once patrolled as a police officer. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 15 years protecting the city, and now he was being detained as if he were a criminal. The handcuffs bit into his wrists, aggravating his shoulder injury, sending sharp pains up his arm. The IC field office was a nondescript government building on the northwest side of San Antonio. Reeves and Torres led Marcus inside through a side entrance, avoiding the public lobby. They processed him in a small room with institutional furniture and fluorescent lighting. Fingerprints first, Marcus's hands pressed onto the digital scanner, creating a record as if he were being booked for a crime. Then photographs from multiple angles. Then an inventory of his personal belongings, wallet, keys, phone, watch. Everything went into a plastic property bag. I want to call my attorney, Marcus said as they finished processing. I have that right. You'll get your call after we verify your status, Reeves replied, though he avoided eye contact. Torres seemed increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. She kept glancing at Marcus's documentation, which sat on the desk between them. Agent Reeves, maybe we should run the verification now. This is a lot of documentation for fraud. Reeves hesitated, then turned to the computer terminal. He entered Marcus's information into the federal database. Name, social security number, date of birth. Within seconds, the screen populated with data. Marcus couldn't see the screen, but he watched Reeves's face pale as he read the results. Torres leaned over to look, and her expression shifted from uncertainty to alarm. The database told a complete story. Marcus Henderson, born Houston, Texas, 1969. United States citizen. Marine Corps service 1987 to 1991. Honorable discharge. Combat deployment Desert Storm. Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with Combat VE. San Antonio Police Department 1995 to 2010. Medical retirement. VA benefits recipient since 1991. No criminal record. No immigration violations. No red flags of any kind. Sir, Torres said quietly, turning to Marcus, there's been a misunderstanding. Your records are completely in order. You're obviously who you say you are. A misunderstanding. Marcus let the word hang in the air. A misunderstanding? You detained a disabled combat veteran in a VA hospital parking garage based on what? An anonymous tip that I look suspicious? Do you understand what you've done? Reeves stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He stepped outside the room, and Marcus could hear him on the phone through the thin walls. The conversation was terse and one-sided. We need to talk about the Henderson complaint. No, he's legitimate. Yes, all his documentation checks out. We detained him. When Reeves returned, his expression was carefully neutral, but Marcus could see the calculation behind his eyes. This agent was already thinking about liability, about how to minimize the damage from a catastrophic mistake. Mr. Henderson, we apologize for the inconvenience. Reeves said the word inconvenience, doing no justice to what occurred. You're free to go. We'll return your property. Inconvenience? Marcus's voice was controlled but carried an edge of steel. You handcuffed me. You detained me. You processed me like a criminal. And you call that an inconvenience? I want answers. Who filed that complaint against me? What did they say that made you think I was committing fraud? Torres glanced at Reeves, then back to Marcus. Sir, we can't disclose a complainant's identity during an investigation. There is no investigation, Marcus interrupted. You just verified I'm exactly who I said I was. That complaint was false. It was malicious, and I have a right to know who tried to weaponize you against me. Reeves's jaw tightened. We're not obligated to provide that information. Marcus leaned forward, his years as a police officer informing his next words. Then I'll get it through discovery when I file my federal lawsuit, because that's exactly what's happening next. You violated my constitutional rights. You had no probable cause. You ignored clear evidence of my legitimacy. And now you're stonewalling about who sent you after me. The room fell silent. Both agents understood the implications. A federal civil rights lawsuit against IC agents would mean investigations, depositions, public scrutiny. Their careers hung in the balance. I'll need to consult with my supervisor, Reeves finally said. 10 minutes later, Reeves returned with a printed document, the original complaint. He handed it to Marcus without comment, and as Marcus read it, his blood pressure spiked. The complaint was filed by Sergeant James Whitmore of the Behar County Sheriff's Office. Marcus knew that name immediately. Whitmore had been a rookie deputy when Marcus was a senior officer at SAPD. Their history was ugly. In 2009, Marcus had filed an internal affairs complaint against Whitmore for excessive force during an arrest. The incident had been clear-cut. Whitmore had beaten a suspect who was already restrained, and Marcus had witnessed it and reported it. The complaint had led to Whitmore's suspension and nearly ended his career. Whitmore had never forgotten. For years, he'd harbored resentment against Marcus, occasionally crossing paths and making veiled threats. But this, weaponizing federal immigration enforcement against a fellow veteran, was beyond anything Marcus had imagined. The complaint itself was a masterpiece of malicious fiction. Subject observed multiple times at VA facility, using what appear to be fraudulent documents. Subject behavior suggests possible identity theft of actual veterans' records. Recommend immediate investigation. Subject is black male, approximately 50 to 55 years old, drives a silver Honda Accord, license plate, Marcus's actual plate number. There was no mention of suspicious behavior, because there had been none. No mention of any actual evidence, because there was none. Just enough detail to make IC believe the tip was credible from a source, a law enforcement officer. That would be taken seriously. This is a personal vendetta, Marcus said, his voice shaking with rage. This man has a history with me. He filed a false complaint to have me arrested. Torres took the document from Marcus and read it again, this time with new understanding. This complaint came from a sheriff's deputy? Why would a local law enforcement officer be monitoring VA facilities for immigration violations? He wouldn't, Marcus said flatly, unless he was stalking someone. Unless he was looking for a way to retaliate against someone who'd cost him his reputation years ago. Reeves had returned to his computer terminal, now running searches on Whitmore. What he found made the situation even worse. Whitmore had filed 3 similar complaints in the past 2 years, all targeting individuals he had personal conflicts with. 2 had been dismissed as unfounded. The 3rd was still under review. This was a pattern. Whitmore was using his position as a law enforcement officer to weaponize federal immigration enforcement against people he didn't like. And ICE had been his willing tool, never questioning complaints from a fellow officer. This is a disaster, Reeves muttered, more to himself than to Marcus or Torres. For you, yes, Marcus said coldly. For me, this is vindication. You acted on a complaint from a corrupt officer with a documented history of abuse. You didn't verify anything before detaining me. You ignored evidence of my legitimacy. You violated my rights based on one dirty cop's word. Torres looked genuinely shaken. Mr. Henderson, we had no way of knowing the complaint was personal. You had every way of knowing. Marcus cut her off. Basic investigation would have revealed I'm a decorated veteran with legitimate VA benefits. You could have verified my status before ever approaching me. Instead, you chose to treat me like a criminal first and ask questions later. While Marcus was being detained, Patricia Chun had been busy. She'd posted her video to social media with a detailed caption explaining what she'd witnessed. She'd also called the local news, reaching a reporter she knew from community activism work. By the time Marcus was released at 5:30 p.m., nearly 3 hours after being detained, her video had already been viewed thousands of times. Local news crews were arriving at the VA hospital, interviewing other veterans who were outraged by what had happened. Marcus's son, David, met him outside the IC field office. The law student had received a call from Patricia Chan and had immediately driven over. When Marcus walked out, David embraced his father, feeling him shake with emotion. "Dad, are you okay? What happened?" Marcus explained everything. The detention, the false complaint, Whitmore's involvement. As he spoke, David's expression shifted from concern to determination. "We're calling Mom right now, and then we're calling the best civil rights attorney in Texas." Marcus's ex-wife, Diana, was a journalist with connections throughout the legal community. Within an hour, they were sitting in the office of attorney Rebecca Martinez, a respected civil rights lawyer who specialized in police misconduct and federal liability cases. Rebecca listened to Marcus's account, reviewed Patricia Chen's video, and examined the complaint document. Her assessment was blunt. This is one of the strongest cases I've seen in years. Clear Fourth Amendment violation, false imprisonment, conspiracy to violate civil rights. And we can prove actual malice because of the history between you and Whitmore. Rebecca filed a federal lawsuit within 2 weeks. Marcus Henderson versus United States of America, Special Agent David Reeves, Special Agent Monica Torres, and Sergeant James Whitmore. The complaint alleged constitutional violations, false imprisonment, malicious prosecution, and conspiracy to deprive civil rights. The case immediately attracted federal attention. The Department of Justice opened a parallel investigation into both ICE's handling of complaints and Whitmore's abuse of his position. The FBI got involved when evidence emerged that Whitmore had filed false complaints across federal databases. Discovery revealed devastating information. Whitmore had been monitoring Marcus for months, tracking his VA appointments, documenting his movements. He crafted complaint carefully, providing just enough detail to seem credible while avoiding specific claims that could be immediately disproven. But Whitmore had made mistakes. His digital footprint showed Google searches for how to report immigration fraud and ICE complaint procedures. His phone records showed calls to ICE's tip line in the days before filing the formal complaint. He'd also discussed his plan with other deputies, several of whom came forward as witnesses once the FBI investigation began. The case against ICE agents was equally strong. Internal protocols required verification of anonymous tips before detention, especially when the subject presented credible identification. Reeves and Torres had ignored these protocols, acting on Whitmore's complaint without any independent investigation. Email records showed that ICE supervisors had raised concerns about the increasing number of complaints from Whitmore, questioning their legitimacy. Those concerns had been ignored by field office management, who trusted complaints from law enforcement sources without scrutiny. Patricia Chen's video went viral, eventually reaching millions of views. National news outlets picked up the story. Decorated Marine detained at VA hospital based on false complaint. The footage of Marcus being handcuffed in the parking garage became a symbol of everything wrong with unchecked federal authority. Veterans organizations across the country rallied behind Marcus. The Marine Corps League issued a statement condemning his treatment. The American Legion called for immediate policy reforms. Veterans Affairs officials expressed outrage that one of their patients had been targeted at their facility. Marcus gave one carefully prepared interview to a national news program. He was measured and articulate, explaining what had happened without hyperbole or exaggeration. He talked about his military service, his police career, his ongoing treatment for service-connected injuries. He described the humiliation of being handcuffed in front of other veterans and staff who knew him. "I served this country in combat," Marcus said to the camera. "I spent 15 years protecting the citizens of San Antonio. I've done everything right. And yet, one corrupt officer with a grudge was able to weaponize federal immigration enforcement against me with a single phone call. If this can happen to me, a combat veteran, a retired cop, someone with every form of legitimate identification, then it can happen to anyone." The interview resonated because Marcus embodied everything Americans claim to value: military service, law enforcement career, clean record, obvious legitimacy. If someone like him could be targeted, then no one was safe from abuse of authority. The trial began 14 months after Marcus's detention. The federal courthouse in San Antonio was packed with veterans in uniform, civil rights advocates, and media from across the country. Marcus testified for a day and a half, walking the jury through his entire experience. He described his military service and injuries, his police career, his regular VA appointments. He explained a moment he saw ICE agents waiting by his car, the confusion and fear as they detained him despite his legitimate identification. "I knew I hadn't done anything wrong," Marcus told the jury. "But I also knew that sometimes that doesn't matter. Sometimes authority figures make up their minds before they even talk to you. And when you're a black man in America, you learn early that proving your innocence doesn't always keep you safe." Patricia Chen testified about what she'd witnessed, describing the agent's aggressive posture and Marcus's calm cooperation. Her video played on screens throughout the courtroom, showing the detention from beginning to end. David testified about receiving the call that his father had been detained, the fear that something terrible had happened. Diana testified about Marcus's character and his devastation after the incident. The bombshell testimony came from two of Whitmore's former colleagues at the Behar County Sheriff's Office. They described his obsession with Marcus, his repeated statements that he would get even for the internal affairs complaint that had damaged his career. One deputy testified that Whitmore had explicitly discussed filing a false immigration complaint as revenge. The jury deliberated for 11 hours over 2 days. When they returned, their verdict sent shockwaves through federal law enforcement. Guilty on all counts against all defendants. The damages were substantial and specific. $3.2 million in compensatory damages to Marcus for emotional distress, false imprisonment, and violation of his constitutional rights. $9.2 million in punitive damages. $4 million against IC and the federal government for systemic failures. $3.8 million against Reeves and Torres personally for their violation of established protocols, and $1.4 million against Whitmore for his malicious conspiracy. Total, $12.4 million. The jury foreman read a statement explaining their decision. This verdict reflects our finding that multiple systems failed Mr. Henderson. A corrupt local officer weaponized federal immigration enforcement as a personal vendetta. Federal agents failed to conduct basic verification before detaining a citizen. Supervisors ignored warning signs about problematic complaints. This veteran deserved better from the institutions he served. Marcus sat quietly as the verdict was read, his children on either side of him, veterans filling the courtroom behind him. When the damages were announced, he closed his eyes briefly, a single tear running down his cheek. It wasn't celebration. It was relief that the truth had been heard and validated. The consequences rippled through multiple agencies. Whitmore was terminated from the Behar County Sheriff's Office and faced federal criminal charges for conspiracy to violate civil rights. He would eventually plead guilty and serve 18 months in federal prison. Reeves and Torres were terminated from IC. The agency announced comprehensive policy reforms, mandatory independent verification of all anonymous complaints before enforcement action, prohibition on detaining individuals at federal facilities without supervisory approval, requirements to accept government-issued identification as presumptively valid, and enhanced training on constitutional rights. The Department of Homeland Security Inspector General issued a scathing report identifying systemic failures in how IC handled complaints from law enforcement sources, which have been treated as automatically credible without independent investigation.